Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Integrating Investor. I am Seth Levine of the Integrating Investor website. Thanks again for joining. I'm just incredibly happy to be back, bringing you part two of our interview with Dr. Wes Gray. We started this interview last week. We actually recorded it before, and it just wasn't. It went very long. I mean, the last thing I want to do is interrupt interview guests. So we decided to cut it up over two sessions. We played the first half last week, and we'll play the second half this week. Similar to last week, again. This is not philosophy, right? We're really talking about an investment process, a thinking method, and applying it towards investing. And that's really going to come out in this episode as it did in the last episode, because really this interview has been all about thinking. How do we think, and how do we think in life? How do we think in investing? Because again, investing is just a part of life. And actually investing is the act of selection, right? We're taking money through an act of selection. We are committing capital, and we're hoping to have more money in the end of it. So as always, again, like and share the show, right? If you liked the last interview, really like that, do me a favor and hit that like button. And again, why not just hit the like button on this show too? Because I can promise you, if you like that, you're really going to like part two. Again, follow me on Twitter, the website, Instagram, all that good stuff. Sign up for monthly emails. You'll get my articles sent directly into your inbox. And always, again, use that super chat function. Like last week, we are going to compile any questions that we get. Wes has been gracious enough to answer all of our questions offline, and we'll come back with either another episode or another way of answering all those questions. So please use that super chat function. I promise you it is going to be exciting. And again, you got any questions, comments, show suggestions, interview guest suggestions, reach out to me at info@integratinginvestor.com. That's info@integratinginvestor.com. And we'll take it from there. And again, as always, we should throw up the good old disclaimer slide that everyone loves, right? I know we just love getting into this. So again, these are personal opinions. These are not investment advice. Anything that I say or Wes say should not be taken to be selling an investment product, service, or anything else. It's not investment advice. You got to do your own work. This is for informational purposes only. Again, anything you do is going to be your own responsibility. So please, do it yourself and take ownership. So with that, and without further ado, let's kick it over to part two with our interview with Dr. Wes Gray. So you've sort of learned this from an investing perspective, right? And you've started a firm, right? You had a hedge fund, and now you have a firm. Yeah. And you've done some different, you've had some different evolutions in your firm. Like, have you been able to apply that kind of mindset into how you've evolved Alpha Architects over time?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And a lot of this, I have to give credit to David Folk, one of my early partners. Long story, how he used to be a guest speaker in my class, but because trend following in particular, this idea of like following things that are in like a positive path, and anything that's going negative, just avoid. He kind of got me on this idea, and then this family office that put us in business a long time ago. Also, I had multiple influences that got me into trend following. But one of the things that he always stuck with me when he was talking to the class, because he used to be in the energy business, still is with his family, is he's like, listen, because he was talking to my students about their careers, he said, follow trends. Like, for example, back then it was like solar and like renewables. He's like, listen, even if you're the worst renewable analyst on a planet Earth, the trend is clearly there. So even if you bomb out of this job, at least you're protected because the trend is your friend, right? Whereas if you want to go try to be like the best carbon, engineer to try to extract more juice out of oil, you're just in a bad trend. And unless you're the very best and you get really good luck, if the wheels fall off in a particular job and you got to go into an industry that just has bad trend, you're dead. So he said, follow trends. So same thing in our business. Like we start off, we start a lot of stupid ideas, but we kind of got lucky because we came out of the ashes of 2008, and then Alpha Architect was formally started in 2010. And that was a time where we got smoked in the hedge fund business, got smoked on so many like overconfidence things. And I said, you know what? This world is going transparent, low cost, affordable, and I need to worry about taxes, fees, and training people to be good investors. And so we were early on in this idea that kind of with the Vanguard, like what's now we're all seeing, that just seemed like the right way to run the biz. So that's what we started. And we just also started with things that I want to invest my own money in, and because I had done my own research on like these concentrated value momentum things, whatever. So that's where we went, right? And that's how that's kind of where we got our business. And then, but along that way, we always did experiments. So we started this business called Turnkey Analyst, which it's so old school. And it's like so pathetic looking back, where we're like, oh, here's an idea. Like we're writing this blog and we're already doing all this data analytics. We run factors. We've done so much research on everything you can ever imagine, and a lot of people reach out. They're like, hey, can you give me this screen, that screen? We should set up a software application online where people can basically be like quant in a box. And we're like, yeah, that's awesome, because like people love it. But then you go to that marketplace and you're like, okay, you're going to be able to charge like what, $100 a year, $200 a year. And, I got to deal with thousands of people billing. And that business is real quickly, we realize we're like, wow, unless we get a million, unless we have this massive audience, this is like tons of brain damage for no benefit. And we're not even that good at it because we're not like full stack engineers and we're hacking together. So I was like, no, we're not doing that. Refocus on assets and just stay there. And then so along that route, like, and this has just happened to us recently. We also were kind of religious about like, hey, we run our stuff. It's the Alpha Architect way. It's our culture. We're very private. Like we're bootstrapping everything. We're vertically integrated. We always try to figure out where the bodies are buried internally. We don't want anyone in our business. We're a private, closely held business internally. Outside we obviously have like empower through education. But then we got approached by a gal who wanted to launch an ETF. And obviously we had the know-how because we've been doing it for a long time. She's like, why don't you guys open up your infrastructure? Because you've been surviving in the ETF business as a non-Vanguard player. You guys obviously are like a low-cost producer of ETF operations and back office. Why don't you let other people use that? And we're like, why would we do that? I don't want to deal with people. Like, that's annoying. But it's one of those things where like there's this trend where like and after the fact's like, well, no kidding, we should have done that. But like everyone wants to get an ETF business. It's an oligopoly. Like Vanguard and iShares are never going to launch your ETF. It's like a super fragmented world where it's like very expensive, very opaque. There's not a lot of players. There's huge economic moats. And we happen to be sitting on like the know-how and the low-cost production asset. Why aren't we offering this as a revenue business as opposed to keeping it as a cost center? Because the trend is clearly there. Let's get out of our head that we can only be asset managers. Why don't we do back office infrastructure, like be the garbage collector for other people? Because we're actually really good at that. Like we're good at compliance ops, coming out of the Marine Corps. That's like what we do. And so we had to like stop stumbling over ourselves because there was a trend there. Instead of fighting this trend where people keep asking us to help them and just kicking business around, we're on the other side of business on ETFs. We're like trying to sell these like hyperactive, super boutique concentrated factor funds. There's like, 5 buyers in the world. It's really hard. Like that's a trend that's long-term, but not great. But ETF servicing is great trend. And so we slowly just, we changed our mindset to be like, hey, let's invest, let's develop. And yeah, that's not what we wanted to be when we grow up, but there's a trend there. Let's follow that. So trend following, I think, is a huge thing in business because it makes you adaptable. Basically, it's the definition of adaptation. Like you follow trends. You will mechanically be moving from one thing to the next, and you never go down on the ship with the one that's losing. Basically,
Right. Is that the AQR paper that's momentum and value everywhere? Is that their paper?
Yeah, no, so
Yeah,
that's
because
a good one that's talking about like value, which is, fundamentally
right.
buying cheap stuff and then hoping that basically the baby got thrown out with the bathwater. And then
Yeah.
obviously momentum, which is really relative strength. And I should make it clear the difference between like momentum and trend, right? So
Yeah.
momentum
I
is
love,
about relative strength. And momentum would say that, hey, I only care if there's two losers, but one's down -10, one's down -20. I still like the -10, right? Because you're trading relative winners. You
okay.
still might own things that have crappy trends. So those are good religions for stock selection. Now, trend following is more about you never want to own something that is moving negative, period. So if -10 stock or a -20 stock, a momentum investor might say, well, I'll get the -10 because it's relatively good. A trend person would say, why would I want to own any of these? Let's just own things that have positive trend. So to be clear, the value momentum AQR paper is about specifically those stock selection strategies of buying cheap and buying relative strength. They have other papers. I think
Right.
they have a paper called, like, they call it time series momentum in academic geek land. But time
That's
series momentum means
trend.
trend following from a practitioner. And that means where you want to own things that just strictly have positive trend and don't own things that have negative trend, regardless of the relative strength. Yeah.
Right. So like even the turn, I mean, I brought up that paper value momentum everywhere
Yeah.
because again, I really got this idea from you
Yeah.
guys and the fantastic educational work that you've put out. And like, I see value momentum everywhere. Now
Yeah. It's
I keep
true.
it value and momentum. And in
Hmm.
my mind, I subset, when I say momentum in my mind, I really think about that time series momentum, which is really
Yeah.
trend.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And
So like,
they
I just,
are related, but it's pretty deep geek on the nuance. But
yeah.
yeah, value momentum is good enough for government work, as they used to say. Yeah.
But it's interesting because I apply those thought, that lens, that's the right way of putting it. I
Yeah.
apply those lens to almost everything, and hearing you talk about your investment strategies but also your business strategies, like it's the
Yeah.
same lens, right? It's looking at, okay, where are the tailwinds, where are the
Yeah.
headwinds, right? The hedge fund business coming out of '08, let me tell you, not a good
Yeah.
business
The
to be
trend
in, right?
sucks.
The trend is terrible.
Exactly.
The ETF business
Yeah.
and this back office and enabling a low cost kind of systematic solution, fantastic tailwinds, right? And it's like you did
Yeah.
that pivot, and again, you could say the value trade in hedge funds was awful there, and the value trade in
Yeah.
ETF land was awesome when you guys got in. So it's really
Yeah.
interesting to kind of apply that same framework for investing really to a broader perspective in life, because I mean, after all, I mean, like, all life is
Yeah.
investing, right? It's like, how are you going to spend your precious time
Yeah.
on
And
earth.
yeah, I mean, I just see the analogy so many places, like even in our own business, like when you think about, like, well, you can be a gold miner or you can be a shovel seller. Most people think I got to choose one. Why don't you do both? Shovel selling's the value trade, gold mining is the momentum trade, right? Like,
Right.
you don't have to do one. Like, and frankly, you
Exactly.
want to do both because, so like shovel selling business might be great, it might not be great, but the gold mining business might be great, right? Like, so it just makes sense to, move your life and everything you do just from a survival standpoint to have some moonshot bets like, hey, I'm going to go be an entrepreneur, but
Right.
I'm also going to run some like rental properties on the side that give me cash flow in the background, right? Like, because you don't want to just be like pure entrepreneur, because what if that blows up and I don't have, I just was gold mining only. I need some shovel selling going on over here. I need some value, some cash flow today type investments too. So yeah, I think everything in life is just risk management, which means managing risk across even your religions of how you invest.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, how did you? I mean, how did you come to these ideas, right? Like, how do they change
Mhm.
over time? I know I mean, part of it was your experience, right? Just your fund
Yeah.
experience, but not everyone would have maybe taken the lessons from that, right? Some people would have just said, oh, it's bad luck, or, made an
Yeah.
excuse for it.
So
Like,
Yeah, it's the problem is, in order to get high mental awareness, you need to get your ass handed to you a lot of times. And that unfortunately has happened to me a lot, where I've just been in positions of getting beat down into a bloody pulp. And you know, like the Marine Corps is like the epitome of that example, where they'll take anything about you and how you think you're awesome and literally make you feel like you're the lowest slime ball on the planet Earth. And it's so it's just it takes a lot of humbling times to just always recognize that you're never better than anyone else. Like you got to wake up every day, put your pants on, and work hard. And there's a lot of luck in life, but you just focus on things you can control. And one of the things you can control is your mental awareness, your awareness of your own brain's frailties. And you know, the best context, you probably know this, but like, you know, the Kahneman framework of thinking fast and slow, where if you think through the lens of how is your brain designed, your brain is designed where it has those system one functions like see tiger run, and then has system two functions, which is see tiger, oh, I have a gun in my pocket, maybe I'll pick it out and shoot the tiger as opposed to running because he runs faster than me. So you got like system two, hyper rational, well thought out. System one, like, God, I'm stressed, I'm tired, I'm pissed off, I'm angry. And so to the extent over time, you know, you practice on basically being disciplined and recognizing when is system one creeping into my mind. Like, am I tired right now? Am I getting grouchy? Am I hangry? Am I pissed off? Am I mad at my partners? Is my ego like making me feel all like a loser? Like, you need to almost look at yourself through a lens of like, hey, self, you're being an idiot right now. You're a system one thinker. Try to go to system two and pull yourself out of that mode. And when you do that, and you have that ability to like manage your mind and be mentally aware, now whenever you see situations where you make a decision, your decision has an outcome, and you're like, oh crap, it was badass. Like system one says you're awesome, like rub your ego, tell yourself how great you are. But if you have that kind of mental awareness and your thought process, you understand what your brain is doing to you, you don't think that. You think, wait a second, you're a lucky bastard. That's what's going on here. Like, you need to get up every day and work harder, because if you don't, the next guy is going to kick your ass. Like, if you always had that mentality of just like, no, it wasn't about you, it was about luck. And you just keep that grind mentality, you just by nature will always be humbled and not suffer from like what they call self-attribution bias, which is like wins you chalk up to how awesome you were, losses you chalk up that you're a total loser. And it was just bad luck. And so if your
Right.
mind always codifies wins as you're awesome and codifies losses as like, ah, oh, it was a Fed did it, or yeah,
Yeah.
it was my partner did it because he's an idiot, and you never take ownership on your decisions, you will systematically become overconfident, be a poor decision maker, and just full of shit. Whereas if you're someone who does the opposite, and you think, hey, anytime something works out favorably, even if maybe it was your skill, you code it in your brain as like you got lucky, you need to work harder, do more push-ups, or go read more books. And it's always luck. And you keep pushing yourself into like an ego, like you're a loser mentality. And then when things go really bad, you don't chalk up the bad luck, but you take it as like ownership. God, like, what did I do wrong here? Like, how do I get better? That kind of mentality of thinking like that will it's hard to lose, because you're always just everything's a win. Like, that's why like
Right.
every people like, why are you so happy? Like, why are you so positive? Why are you so excited all the time, man? Because to me, I always trick my brain into thinking like, hey, I'm gonna go haze myself because that taste of water is gonna be the best taste of water I ever had on the planet Earth. Right. And so if you always like kind of just make your brain think you're a loser, and then you get little wins because you may do something good, like you always are going to be happy. and
Yeah.
and and I just developed that through like basically warping my mind over time, basically.
That's really interesting. I have a similar sort of approach I've written on this. I've taken this from, because this is on the, the Ayn Rand Institute's channel. Like, Ayn Rand as a philosopher had a really profound impact on me. And I never read Kahneman System 1, System 2, but in her philosophy, she has this concept of the conscious and the subconscious, and
Yeah.
how they're integrated together in a sense. And I've spent a lot
Yeah.
of time really trying to become aware of my subconscious and then
Yeah.
analyzing that. And it's freaking
Yeah.
exhausting work, right? It's like
It
everything you
is.
think and feel, it's like you have to go, and it's a grinder mentality. It's like, well, I got to grind the
Yeah.
truth out of this. And like my
Yeah.
wife will always be like, just stop it. It's like, well, no, this
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like,
I know.
you
Yeah.
know,
Can I just live emotionally?
exactly. It's like, no, we need to, this is a system and we need to grind this out. So we come to, I would see it more
Yeah.
as like the truth and trying to figure out what's earned and unearned, but it's getting you
Yeah.
to the same, it's getting you to the same spot,
Yeah. And there's,
at
I mean, a lot of people follow like David Goggins. Like there's a lot of like fitness freaks out there and I've learned a lot about, like, I have a lot of friends that do like meditation and mindfulness. Like they're like total hippie types. And I'm
Mhm.
like, wait a second, everyone's doing it their own way, but like Buddha, like Buddhism, all these things are really about trying to understand like your subconscious or your system, or whatever it is. What is that feeling in your head that's making you angry or pissed off because your kid is yelling at you right now? To the extent that you can, like, in your own mind, control that action and identify that you're just pissed off and angry. But do I really want to, like, really like, and if you can control that through like that mental awareness, or like what I guess what people call mindfulness, and people in yoga do this. Everyone's got their own way of going about it. I just feel like people that have that ability to control themselves just have a lot better lives, because
Yeah.
you don't have to deal with all the emotion of everything. I found, but it's obviously
No,
not everyone can do that. It's a learn practice skill over time.
that's 100%. That's really, I mean, again, there's an investing analogy there, and even in your own life, where you go from this value investing total, if you want to say like system, I don't
Yeah,
even want to get
system
into
one
systems, but
emotionally.
yeah, yeah, just kind of acting on how the world should be in a sense, or,
Yeah.
it's a lot of should, right? And then
Yes.
just kind of like just coming down to reality and being like, okay, like that's an emotion. Maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't. Like, let me systematize this. The world is
Yes.
unknowable. Let me just get my rational brain around this and think of a way to separate kind of that emotional response from maybe a more, system two kind of logical process of, hey, we're investing. This is the future. Like, it's
Yeah.
unknowable. We don't know what's going to happen, right? And
Yeah.
empirically speaking, there are trends and there are counter trends, just speaking from empirics. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe this is a trend, right?
Yeah. And
That's super.
I, yeah, 100%. And usually the best investors with mentality and I've learned this the hard way because I lost all my hair being a fundamental investor, is you cannot get emotionally involved or take anything personally in investing. Like the stock market does not care about your feelings, so why do you care? In the end, people that finally realize that, like, stop thinking it's about you. The market doesn't care. Nobody cares. You should not get emotionally invested or pissed off or angry or happy about anything in investing, because the minute you allow that emotion or that subconscious, that system one, wherever you want to call it, creep into that decision making process, it will inevitably be flawed. Um,
Right.
because it just, you should not be emotional about investment decisions. They're too important. Like your emotional decisions, and this is my problem, like, because I've unfortunately I'm too well trained, and I'm too, like, brainwashed in myself. Like I also have the opposite problem where I have issues with like empathy and like understanding and like understanding people that are very emotional. I have a hard time relating to them, and so that's a double sided sword of being someone that's a little bit too, like, pragmatic. Like
Yeah.
I don't have emotions anymore, unfortunately. Maybe that's something coming out of the service, but it serves me great in investing because it just doesn't, that affects me, man. Like I just don't care.
Yeah.
But in other aspects of life, like even like people die or whatever, like I just don't. I don't know if I'm screwed up or something, but I just do not have any emotions about that stuff anymore. Like it just doesn't affect me. And I feel like it should, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
And so there's also there's dangers of getting too maybe too hardcore on this stuff too. Just I'm not saying like my way is the right way,
Yeah.
That's just where I'm at right now. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
That's
what it
fascinating.
is.
I mean, that's a whole different show.
Yeah,
Maybe,
yeah, yeah. Yeah. I need to
maybe a
get a
different
shrink on
guest.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, that's fascinating. There's a lot there, and I've called investing the act of selection, um, and making money from money, from the act of selection. So
Yep.
it really is this mental game. It's unlike anything, really
100%.
unlike anything else there is. So
Yeah.
really getting, and that's the whole impetus for the show, is kind of getting into my own head, and my blog
Yeah.
is like getting into my own head, because you need to know that in order to invest. That's
Yes.
interesting. So
Well, and the other, or one thing on that is, and this is also me just being naive. And now I see analogies everywhere on this, but we start our firm with like a true impact mission. Like we actually believe in our why, which is we seek to empower investors through education. Period. And that is our actual no shit mission. It's not like a marketing pitch, and we
right,
live that every day. And the ethos behind that is like, hey, the biggest issue in investing is behavior. And just through my rigid mentality, well, how do you get people to get better behavior? You give them evidence, you give them data, you like bring the horse to water, because hey, you're thirsty, you should drink the water. Because logically that made sense in my head. But of
right,
course, I've come to realize like there's a lot of things, like, not to get political or anything, but like even now day and age, like there's a lot of things where I'm thinking like, okay, if you don't get this vaccine, you have a high chance of dying and getting this horrible disease for 2 weeks that sucks. I'm gonna go get vaccinated, dude. I don't give a shit what like the political guys say. Like I'm getting vaccinated, dude.
right.
Like done. And then like they have all this evidence, like, hey, like, this thing works. The vaccine works, man. And yet, like 50% of people don't want to get vaccinated. And I see this all the time investing, where like we spend all this time with people training them. They totally get it. We think they get it. We brought the horse to water, and they go back to day trading. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, so there is this other human element where some people, it's just illogical to think, and this is why I'm actually not a libertarian anymore, because I forgot about humans. Is there's just some class of people out there where incentives at some level just don't matter. It's
Mm,
they're too emotionally driven, and this idea that like freedom and incentives will drive you to the promised land. And now that I've seen it with my own eyes, that you can put plain vanilla incentives related to like survival, dying, food, water, and some people will make decisions even with full evidence and understanding. They'll still shoot themselves in the foot. Um,
yeah.
so I'm back to not really understanding how the world works in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah,
But
that's really interesting. I have a way of bridging that in a sense. And
okay,
I see it as context. And really, when it comes down to like, this is just from my own experience, again, kind of trying
mhm,
to banish my own demons, is you just don't know what's in other people's heads as much as you
I
think you
agree.
do. And you don't know
Yeah.
what connections, like, what are the real motivating
Yes.
factors? Like, people may not be motivated by the fact chain that you lay out, right? And that
Yeah.
could go back to,
Yeah.
let's like, we'll bring it back full circle. Like, that could go back to what religion they believe in, right? What,
Yeah.
you may hit a point, maybe hitting against a point of faith that no
Yeah.
amount, by definition, of evidence can ever touch, or
Yeah,
change.
and
That's super
I'll give you
fascinating.
one story I heard from this Iraqi guy. Because a lot of people, that's why I wrote that book Embedded back in the day. Because I came in like young, dumb, and stupid, like every other American. Like, oh, like let's just go in there and blow these guys up. They got the white powder that's going to kill us all. Let's go. They love freedom like we do, right? And because that's what we're trained. Like
When
we
was this?
live in a
Just
free.
was this in
What's that?
desert? Was this Desert Storm? Just to set
No,
the.
no, this is
Okay.
first Iraq war.
Okay. First. Okay.
So that's when I was in the service.
Oh,
So
sorry.
I was
That's
like,
what I meant. Yeah.
okay,
Desert
yeah,
Storm.
but you see like Colin Powell, like, hey, we're all
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
die
Yeah.
from WMD. And I just didn't have enough experience. I didn't know enough about the history, like the Vietnam War and all that stuff. I was just an idiot, without a lot of context in life. And then so I was like, all right, this sounds like a reasonable idea. Like, I'm here to serve primarily, but that, I this makes sense. Let's do this mission. And of course, I was on one of those embedded training teams where I like lived with Iraqis and like was out with them every day, learned the language, the whole ball of wax. And I quickly realized after being exposed to them, a lot of people in the world, to your point, people are just different, man. And I remember this Iraqi he says, hey, go touch your right ear. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, touch your right ear. So I like reach up and I touch my right ear. I was like, okay. He's like, that's not how an Iraqi would do it. I was like, okay, so how would Iraqi do it? And he literally takes his left arm, goes all behind his head, and he reaches around and touches his right ear. And he's like, that's how an Arab, or not Iraqi, an Arab would do it. I'm like, well, why would you do that? Like, it's so much more efficient to do that. He's like, exactly. You idiots in the West are all about efficiency, productivity, and get to the answer. In my culture, it's all about the relationship and doing irrational things to accommodate your guest or so that's why we'll go the extra mile inefficiently and do stupid, weird looking things, because that's how we operate. And if you look at our culture and you always think just, hey, touch your right ear, and you dumb Americans just go touch your right ear because that's so logical and simple and straightforward, you will never understand and never be successful in this culture. And that was something where I was like, holy shit, I would never in a million years, no matter how many psychologists told me to think about it, consider that to touch my right ear, I'd use my left arm and go behind my head. It is, so it's just, people are just different.
Yeah.
And I finally get that. And
yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, speaking about different, I mean, we've talked a lot about, I like to think we talked a lot about investing. We've definitely talked a lot about kind of just frameworks and thinking.
yeah.
And obviously we all do different things in our time off. Like, would love to know kind of like, what do you do when you're not running your business? And do you see any similarities between, investing, kind of alpha architects and your outside interests, that kind of integrates it all together?
I mean, honestly, like my problem at some level is I actually like my business. So for me, it's like, Warren Buffett used to have the saying about like tiptoeing to work or whatever, or tap dancing to work every day. Like, that's kind of my problem, man. Like I just actually like my business and I like the work, and I would do it anyways, even for free, probably. Like, some things suck at times, but like in general, I just like doing business. So I spend a lot of time on my business and like in the ecosystem, helping entrepreneurs out. But outside of that, like, obviously I got 3 kids, three, like 6, 9, and 12. So, I like doing family stuff, hanging out with them. And I like physical fitness. So, I mean, besides like working out and like trying to stay in shape and like hanging out with my wife and my 3 kids and managing, our team and our business and all that, like, I'm kind of tapped out, man. I don't have time for hobbies and like basket weaving on the side. I just,
Yeah.
there's only 24 hours in a day, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what, anyone who follows your Twitter feed will just look at your, working out as pretty intense. You seem to always
Yeah, I
be
like to do extreme.
doing
I like
pretty
to do
extreme
extreme
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that's
um,
that's that's more than the casual day at the gym for sure.
yeah, but for
Um,
me, again, it all goes back to like that meditation element of I just like there's a guy, David Goggins, and he's very different than my philosophy on a lot of things. But I really appreciate his whole idea is that ability to just control your mind, and when your mind says no, that ability to say yes, shut up, we're doing that. Like that's a skill you have to train. And I've gotten weak. Like honestly, when I used to be in the service, I was batshit crazy. Let's be honest. Like, I was not fit for civilian life. Let's just call it that. Like, it just is what it is. I was like warrior, like they call it, like the warrior culture. I was like all in. I was literally insane. Like I can admit that now because I recognize that. But now coming out of it, like I don't need to be like that anymore, because I don't need to be worried about like killing people or thinking about this guy's gonna kill me today or something. So I've gotten past that. But I just like doing stuff that's like, can you really do that? And like being able to say like, I don't actually know if I could do that. Let's go try it. so that's usually what leads me to do stupid things that I sometimes try, because I'm just not convinced I could do it. I'm gonna go try.
That
And I don't
is
know why I like to do that. I just do.
that is absolutely
But
fascinating. Unfortunately, I can relate. So I don't know if it takes one
yeah,
to know one or it's more common than we think. Like Wes,
yeah,
this
no,
has
I
been
think
an
it is. I think there's something in genetics that some people are just got to screw loose, and that because I can't explain it. It's just, I just
I,
woke up and one day I want to do that, so that's what I do.
uh,
Lot
yeah, I
lot of
can't.
things are unexplained like that.
Yeah, I can't explain it either. I mean, Wes, this has been an absolutely blast. I've had so much fun. I love getting into this aspect of the investing game that like I feel like it's not really talked about so much. So, I want to be respectful
Yeah.
of your time. I want to kick it over to
Yep.
you. I mean, if you have any last words or anything you want to leave people with, where can they follow you, follow your work?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. It's all, I mean, so, add Alpha Architect on Twitter, alphaarchitect.com. And, and it's not just me, like most of the stuff we do is like my team. So I have like tons of writers, tons of people you should follow. Like we have like a huge cadre of guest authors now. They're putting out great content. And these days it's not about me. I'm done being famous. I want to try to elevate other people to help empower through education. So, yeah, just follow Alpha Architect. Um, and like, go down those rabbit holes of like a lot of the authors that write on our blog, because all of them have like interesting stories, unique things to tell. Yeah, and anything I can do to help people just get better and be more informed, that's what we're all about. So reach out anytime.
That's awesome. And I highly recommend everyone kind of check out Wes's Twitter site, check out Alpha Architects. It is awesome. I mean, their website's great, such high quality content out there, super nice people. Can't recommend it enough. It's helped me immensely on the way how I think about the world. So everyone, thank you for joining in. Thanks for listening. If anyone used that super chat function, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. We'll make sure to get your questions answered and come back with all that. Wes, thanks so much. And with that, everyone, have a great weekend.